3, every plot hole and question answered in Screen Crush to say about this and check this out.
Hey, welcome back to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It was a little confusing. Its story connects to the multiverse, other dimensions, time travel, and it's the 41st title in the MCU, not counting short films. So, with all those complications, there are bound to be plot holes and unanswered questions.
I'm extremely confused. You're confused. I'm confused, bro.
So, we asked all of you for your questions on my Twitter and our community page. You guys had questions about the quantum realm, Kang's time travel, the ending, and whether or not Kang is actually dead.
No one who dies here ever really dies.
So now, we're going to do our best to answer your questions. First, let's talk about Janet. Atypical 1242 asks, how does Janet being secretive, yet her actively helping explore the quantum realm and Ant-Man and the Wasp post-credits before Endgame jive? Is the idea that she was limiting how much they could fund? Actually, I think they re-edited the ending of Ant-Man and the Wasp to make this movie make more sense. Originally, there was a deleted scene where she told Hank more details about the quantum realm.
There's so much we didn't know about this place, Henry. Worlds upon worlds, entire civilizations.
And a lot of that exact dialogue was lifted for this movie when she explains the realm to her family.
It's a secret universe beneath ours.
So at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, they're sending Scott into like one very specific part of the quantum realm, and then they will pull him out. But in this movie, what freaks Janet out is that Cassie sends out a signal that reverberates through the entire quantum realm and then bounces back to their location. It's the difference between dipping your toe in the ocean or dipping your foot in chum and then into the ocean. Cassie essentially created a device that would tell Kang their exact location. But also, remember what Janet tells him.
And don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you.
What's a time vortex? Well, I would imagine that a time vortex is how Kang's variants banished him to the quantum realm. After all, they are masters of time, and the quantum realm is key for time travel. So these time vortexes probably lead into this deep part of the quantum realm where Kang lives. So clearly, Janet did not want them to know about Kang. She also tells Scott to avoid the tardigrade field.
Make sure you stay out of the tardigrade field. They're cute, but they'll eat you.
As we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but these are like one of the first things you encounter when you start to shrink into the quantum realm. So we talk about the quantum realm having levels. What we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was the deepest level, and the places with the time vortex, the tardigrades, those are all like closer to our actual size. And along those same lines, Victor Santos 6297 says, Janet not saying anything before it's too late. I get that she was upset about Kang, but was there any need to hide that? Look, guys, I thought this made total sense for Janet. When people come home from war, they don't usually want to talk about it. Janet wanted to forget the life that she led down there. She didn't want her family to know that she was responsible for the rise of Kang, or that she killed people in the resistance. She had a very normal reaction for a person with trauma. And speaking of trauma, I very much appreciated the weight that they gave to these feelings these characters were having. Trauma is an incredibly normal thing in our everyday lives, and it can cause lack of sleep, anxiety, and depression. We've all had very low points in our lives, and therapy can help. Like, I lost someone very close to me a few years ago. I was super depressed. I hated life, and actually therapy helped me get through that. And maybe there's something in your life that's interfering with your own happiness. You might want therapy, but you're not sure where to get started. And that is where BetterHelp comes in. They're the sponsor of this video. BetterHelp listens to your needs and helps match you with your own licensed therapist. This is not a crisis line or self-help. It's professional therapy. Like, I'm from a rural area where it's really hard to find therapists. So BetterHelp is perfect with a network of more than 25,000 therapists, the largest therapy network in the world. So to get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and your therapy preferences. That way, BetterHelp can match you with a custom-picked therapist from their network. It is very accessible. You can log into your account at any time and send messages to your therapist. Plus, you can schedule weekly phone or video sessions so you won't have to sit in uncomfortable waiting rooms. But if your therapist isn't right for you, BetterHelp makes it easy to switch. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. It's more affordable than traditional therapy, and financial aid is available. And we have a special offer for Screen Crush fans. Click the link in the description to get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp. That's HELP.com/ScreenCrush, or you can click this QR code. Now, back to the plot holes. Sorrel Trading had a similar question. If Janet Van Dyne just told them earlier that there was a time-traveling conqueror, maybe they would be more ready and cautious in sending a signal down there. Also, I don't know why the people there blame her for everything Kang did. Well, for one thing, Janet was pretty clear. She told them don't explore the quantum realm, and they were going against her wishes. And I already explained why she didn't tell them about Kang. And I totally understand why the people in the quantum realm would blame her for Kang. She helped him get his power back. She also led a fight against him, and even says that some people call her a terrorist. It's implied that Janet was a troublemaker who did some really nasty things down in the quantum realm. Half the people probably hated her, and the other half hated her for abandoning the fight against Kang. Rodney Summers on Twitter asked, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Janet had strange quantum abilities. Should anyone else develop these powers? How could she have developed them? Well, she developed the powers because she was in the quantum realm for so long.
I'm not the same woman I was 30 years ago, Henry.
I got the impression that Janet had soaked in quantum energy and became kind of a quantum battery. She then used all her energy to stabilize Ghost, and that is why they were trying to get more quantum particles at the end of the movie. Now we know that Janet wants nothing to do with the quantum realm, so this makes sense. The only way she would ever want to revisit even a section of the quantum realm is to get more of these particles to help out Ghost. Although, now that we know that she was a freedom fighter in the quantum realm, maybe those powers were the result of some experiment she did on herself, trying to give herself a new weapon to use against Kang. Heck, maybe those powers developed because of her proximity to Kang's multiversal core. Invincible Heber on Twitter says, when Janet steals and expands Kang's core, she suits up as if she had a nanotech suit, which isn't a thing before Black Panther, or before Endgame or Infinity War, or anyone besides T'Challa and Tony. Her suit was supposed to be old-fashioned like the one shown in Ant-Man. Alright, so the comics always have this weird thing where when the Wasp shrinks, all of a sudden she gets wings. Fine.
Scott, I get emails from a raccoon, so nothing sounds crazy anymore.
So here's where we see nanotech in the movie. When Scott and Hope are wearing other clothes, and then they're suddenly in their suits without shrinking. That's nanotech. Just before Janet steals the core, she hits a button that makes her helmet come up out of her collar. And that is tech that we saw used in the first Ant-Man movie. And when you watch this frame by frame, Janet is wearing her suit when she shrinks, implying that it was underneath her tunic. But the real question is, what happened to her tunic? Inertial Alex says, when Scott, Cassie, Hope, Hank, and Janet all arrived in the quantum realm, how did Krylar and Kang know they were there? Does Krylar and Kang have the same kind of tech? It's implied that they found out they were there because they have spies everywhere. And yes, Krylar does have Kang's actual tech. He arrives on one of Kang's ships. He surrendered to the Conqueror, and the Conqueror gave him the title of Lord. And here's one about the powers in the movie and how they work. Elusive Bunny asks, not really a plot hole, but I did not understand the suit powers. I thought they didn't have to be big to be strong, so what was the point of the jump tap? Well, in the first movie, Janet explains that when you're small, your energy is compressed. So
you have the force of a 200-pound man behind a fist 1/100 of an inch wide. You're like a bullet.
But then she went on to teach him about the nuances of this power.
You punch too hard, you kill someone. Too soft, it's a left tap.
So you don't have to be big to be strong, but you do have to know how to focus your energy forward or else you'll hit too soft, like Cassie does when she bounces off the soldier's helmet face. But also, when Scott and Cassie are small, they can't jump high enough to hit someone in the face. So they have to do the jump tap in order to reach the bad guys' heads. They went on to ask, also, why have these suits and only the Wasp has flying tech? Imagine being flying would be life-saving, but I wouldn't be the right bug. Well, Cassie's suit is brand new and kind of unsanctioned, so of course she wouldn't have wings yet. And in the comics, she does have wings under her identity Stinger. As for why Scott doesn't have wings, well, it's because he doesn't.
So I take it you didn't have that tech available for me?
No, I did.
Canon Blackwell 1 says, they get hungry and tired when they grow really big, but in the quantum realm, they're still so tiny that it shouldn't matter how much they grow. So I think they establish it pretty well, that when they hit the sub-level of the quantum realm, they're like a default size for that realm. They're the same height as all the other humanoids. So when they grow or shrink, the same rules apply to them as they do in the real world. In fact, when they're giant, they even move slower, just like they do when they're in the regular dimension. Nisa Dion writes, how did Cassie suddenly become a pro in her suit by the end of the movie when she was struggling to use it when they first got to the QR? Easy. They didn't have time for a full training montage like Scott had in the first Ant-Man movie. And also, this wasn't her first time being small and doing some training. Cassie says that she already knows how to do some of these fighting moves, so I suspect that Grandpa, Hank, and Hope had been showing her a few moves on the slide. This user asked who at Marvel owed Bill Murray money. His character was completely baffling. I fundamentally disagree. I loved Bill Murray's role here. They could have given this part to anyone, but Murray did a perfect job chewing up the scenery. In such a brief scene, he conveys that his guy is a freedom fighter who lost his faith, and now he's lost his soul and he's partying in hell. In Murray's more recent roles, he tends to play muted, emotionally repressed men.
May I have a cigarette?
What?
But here, he gets to bring out that cocky swagger from films like Ghostbusters and Kingpin.
Watch the door.
He even does this little shoulder thrust that seems lifted from Big Ern McCracken. Murray even said that he did the part because he wanted to try out these kind of movies and see what the fuss is about. The same reason Harrison Ford is doing TV shows and playing Thunderbolt Ross. He wants to try new things as he reaches the end of his career. Obviously, we had lots and lots of questions about the quantum realm. At Fabio Mota F10 Mota asked, in Endgame, Ant-Man mentioned that he was 5 minutes in the quantum realm and 5 years passed on Earth. This time, there was much more time, and it was only 5 minutes passed on Earth. I was expecting when they came out of the quantum realm that decades would have passed on Earth. The same thing applies between the time Cassie escaped the quantum realm and then saved Ant-Man. Years should have passed on Earth between those two moments, but it was only like instantly. Yes, now we actually got this question a lot after Endgame, when people were asking why time passed normally for Janet and not for Scott. For one thing, we don't know how much time passed on Earth in this movie. The lab is still there, but time could have passed in real time. But the answer can be summed up in a broad way with 2 lines.
It means that you would enter a reality where all concepts of time and space become irrelevant.
And this line.
Time works differently in the quantum realm.
Now look, this may sound like a cop-out, but like if some creature from another dimension were to visit our reality, they would find that the way time works here is also inconsistent, like the time dilation that we saw in the movie Interstellar. If you stand on a planet that is closer to a higher gravitational field, time passes slower for you than it does for the people on Earth.
The gravity on that planet will slow our clock compared to Earth's drastically.
So the rules for time are inconsistent even in our own dimension. Now I'll assume that since Janet was in the deepest part of the quantum realm for 30 years, that time passed at the normal rate for her. And so it passes at the same rate for the Ant Fam in this movie, so it's only been like a day. Jeremy Gover had a similar question asking, you say for every year that goes by on Earth it's an hour in the quantum realm, but Janet Van Dyne looks so much older than 30 hours passed when she went subatomic. Why is that? Sorry if that's a dumb question. Not dumb at all, and it seems to depend on what part of the quantum realm you are in. And there's also those time vortexes that Janet mentioned.
And don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you.
Speaking of which, Mikey Brickman asked, if ants are super advanced, live thousands of years in a day, why not bring them back to Earth? Are you insane? Why in the hell would you want to unleash an army of ants like that on Earth? Leave them be. They've earned their kingdom in the quantum realm. For the Love on Twitter asked, also, who the hell shut off the quantum realm machine that Cassie built so the entire city didn't get sucked into the quantum realm? Or did it just conveniently shut off when Scott jumped in after Cassie? It was truly giving Otto vibes. Lol. I think you're talking about Otto's fusion reactor in Spider-Man 2 threatening to devour the whole city, right? Well, in this case, Cassie's machine loses power altogether, but then MODOK sends a signal back up to pull them in. Once they were in, MODOK apparently pulled the plug on his end. Milan asked, in the place wherein your multiple selves are created, suddenly how come Ant-Man and the Wasp are sole individuals? Easy. The reason they were duplicated was because each double represented a possible choice that they could make. Hope is immediately told to ignore them, and she is like much more focused than Scott, so there are fewer duplicates of her. Whereas Scott is like way more scatterbrained, so he has thousands and thousands of dupes. But Scott's duplicates disappear as soon as he grabs Hope's hand, because at that moment, he only has one decision to make, to hold on to Hope and save Cassie. Oh, and incidentally, a Twitter user named Maximilian Marvel pointed out that this sequence seems inspired by this really cool Mark Waid and Javier Garron Ant-Man and the Wasp comic. Very cool. Rodney Summers on Twitter asked, where the hell did all the people living in the QR come from? I thought it was just Kang and Janet at first. No, Janet was just living in a remote place. She wasn't stranded alone. These people are actually from the quantum realm. They evolved there. Hank even says when they arrived that none of this makes sense from what they know from an evolutionary standpoint. This is also why the people in the QR call Kang and the Ant Fam outsiders. James Kerr also asks, how do they breathe? They are way smaller than oxygen molecules from what I understand. I'll let Hank answer that question.
Where all concepts of time and space become irrelevant.
I mean, the quantum realm has a creature that secretes Babel translation juice. There's a lot there that doesn't make any sense according to what we know about the laws of the universe in our dimension. And guys, we had so many questions about Kang that I'm really excited to get to. At Arthur Beyond 2175 asks, how does Kang know where the rebels were but never send MODOK to kill them before? He never cared. They weren't rebels. They were refugees, and they were not a threat to him. They weren't trying to attack him. They just wanted to be left alone. Byaku asked if Kang knows how everything goes, how did he not see this revolution and an ant army coming? Well, first of all, he did not see everything coming, or else he wouldn't have gotten himself trapped in the quantum realm. When Kang says that he saw the end of time, he wasn't saying that he saw the end of every possible timeline. He saw how all the infinite timelines were eventually going to destroy all of existence. It's like if you know how the World Series ends, but you may not know exactly who won all 2,430 baseball games. Shiva M. Bohan Law 1332 asks, why did Kang die? He is supposed to be the new Thanos, but he is killed by Ant-Man and the Wasp. He doesn't look strong. Will his death be retconned, or will the Avengers face another Kang variant? Guys, he is not dead. It's the MCU. Now, I do agree that having Ant-Man get lucky and beat him is like a little lame, which is why I think that when Kang does come back, the first thing he's going to do is kill Scott. See, Scott put two kinds of PIM particles on the multiversal battery. He made it grow both big and small at the same time, which actually eventually just ended up pulling it apart. This eventually made the energy inside the core explode and disperse, but the Pym particles made Kang shrink into the drive when this energy was still fluctuating. So all that happened is that Kang shrank down into the heart of this multiversal battery. A battery that generates a probability field that is like a supercomputer calculating different universes across the multiverse, and that battery's energy allows Kang's chair to open doorways to any time and place he wants. So I think Kang will use this energy with maybe some of the tech in his suit and open a portal somewhere and rebuild his empire. Akira U7318 asks, why does the Council of Kang exile Kang the Conqueror with his time machine if they know that that machine can help Kang get out from the quantum realm? I mean, they will know, because they are Kang's variants after all, that that machine can travel through time in the multiverse, so why do they exile Kang with his machine? Well, my take on it is that when they fought Kang, he had his machine, and like they were lucky to beat him. So they opened this tunnel, they sent the machine down with him, but only because they had no other choice. As for why they exile Kang, they do explain this in the movie, but there was a lot going on and it was easy to miss. Basically, different variants of Kang discovered the multiverse, just like He Who Remains explained.
I love your shoes. I love your hair. Oh, man. Nice nose. Thanks, man.
And every time they used multiversal time travel, they created new timelines, which created weirder and weirder variants. And some of those variants were violent and power-hungry, so this council decided to rule over different universes, each helping the other out. Now, Kang the Conqueror is a lot like He Who Remains at the end of Loki. He's someone who skipped to the end of the book and saw that there was a multiversal war coming. In the Flash's Janet scenes, we see Kang destroying whole planets, which results in whole timelines being destroyed. By destroying these timelines, Kang was trying to stop a multiversal war, but the council just sees him as cutting into their territory, so they exiled him. Sean on Twitter asks, how did Kang communicate with the locals? Did he drink the goo at some point, or does he speak their native language? He drank the ooze. They sell it at bars. He drank the ooze. Pat Lane asks, how about the fact that Kang beat Thor so easily they didn't even remember him or know his name, but then he lost to ants? Personally, I think that he was messing with Scott when he didn't remember Thor's name.
You're not the one with the hammer.
It's Thor.
Because, like, right after that, he calls Scott AntMan. But also, Kang didn't just, like, lose to ants. He lost to an army of more than 1 million giant ants. Ants can lift up to 20 times their own body weight, and they have an exoskeleton that would be impregnable at that size. And say again, there were millions of giant ants. It's totally believable. Now the people in the quantum realm should just pray that the ants stay on their side. Mikey Brickman says, if all the Kang variants want the same thing, why aren't they all destroying the multiverse? Kang said he was outcast, but by the end, it sounds like they were rooting for him. You can't have both. I think you wildly misunderstood the movie. Well, the Kang variants have banded together, kind of like the Mafia, in an effort to share the multiverse and to rule over like their own particular universes. They're not trying to destroy the multiverse. They're actually worried that the heroes are going to destroy their control of the multiverse. Kang saw that his variants, by acting recklessly, were eventually going to turn on each other and destroy the multiverse in a war.
I mean, they do act pretty manic at the end of the movie.
Right? So, his variants are not rooting for Kang at all. It's the opposite. Now, a lot of people had beef with the ending. Q and Face asked, how did Cassie, at the end of the movie, regenerate a teleportation field from Kang's tech designed centuries in the future that had already closed on a mapping/signal machine that was not designed to do this? And now are they able to turn this portal on again and at will travel to the quantum realm? Hey, that's a great question. Cassie's device was not a teleporter. It was a Hubble telescope that could see into the quantum realm. But then, once MODOK found that signal, he was able to bring them down to the quantum realm. Janet would have used this same technology to reconnect to Cassie's beacon. We even see her finding a timeline and then zooming in on it until we see Earth. And she says that she can only give them one shot back using Kang's technology. After Kang's battery is destroyed and the portal is closed, however, we do see Cassie using the quantum telescope to hone in on Scott's position. Now, she's able to reopen the portal, I think, by using Pym particles. Because, as we've seen, Pym particles are the way to travel back and forth to the quantum realm. I will say, though, I thought this ending was a little bit lame. The leaked ending said that they were going to end up stuck in the quantum realm, and I think this would have been much, much better for Cassie's story and for setting up whatever is next in the MCU. Also, there were behind-the-scenes footage showing the cast wearing the clothes that they wore in reshoots, the same clothes that they wore at Cassie's birthday party, basically confirming that everything we see after that portal opens again was a reshoot that they added in later.
And also, how did the device even shrink them when they didn't have Pym particles?
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, okay, MODOK brings them to the quantum realm, and then when they do that, they shrink, right? But, like, you gotta have Pym particles to shrink. That's why Kang needed Scott to get the battery. So how did MODOK shrink him?
Ah, I see. Okay, so one theory is that Cross had some Pym particles on him when he was put into the quantum realm.
Well, wait, no, because then he just would have shrank the sphere for Kang.
Well, I think he actually tried to shrink the sphere, but remember, Cross's particles were a little bit defective. They didn't work quite right. This would explain how MODOK knew exactly what Scott was going to encounter when he was in the quantum realm. How else would he have known that the sphere was going to be surrounded by a probability field unless he had already tried to shrink the sphere for Kang. Or maybe they brought them to the quantum realm because Kang's technology allows him to bend time and space. Well, think about it. The Kang variants travel through time. And the Avengers also travel through time, but they used Pym particles. The Kang variants don't have Pym particles. So the variants must have some other means to move in and out of the quantum realm so they can time travel. Kang would have used this technology to pull them into the quantum realm.
But then why doesn't he just use that technology to escape?
Because Kang is so deep in the quantum realm that he doesn't have enough residual power to escape. But he has enough residual power to reel in the Pyms.
Okay, fair, well done.
Deadpool 1746 says, not a loophole, just a question. If Kang isn't dead, what are the possible outcomes of Kang getting sucked into the multiversal core? Actually, man, we covered all of that in our Ending Explained video. You should really check it out. Jerry Earls Jr. has a pair of questions. I find it hard to believe that Kang the Conqueror, who has killed trillions, including multiple Avengers, was killed by Ant-Man and the Wasp. They didn't kill him. And also, it was more that he was done in by the power of his own multiversal engine core. On a similar name, Scooby-Coon asks, Kang's psychic powers confused me. Could he only manipulate at a certain range? He would have force choked everyone that was a problem. I still like the movie though. Yeah, I like it too. And this is a fair question. Kang seems so overpowered at first, using telekinesis to torture Scott and Cassie, but by the end of the movie, that power is gone. But the movie explains this perfectly. Every time Kang uses his telekinesis, we see his forearm guards glow. Kind of like how an Infinity Stone on the Gauntlet would glow every time Thanos used it in combat. You see, Kang doesn't actually have powers. He has all this advanced tech from the future, so he gets his power from his armor. Personally, I think that might change after he's sucked into the engine core, and he'll have a natural ability to leap across timelines.
Kang is hopping across timelines. He is a quantum hopper. Dun, 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 dun.
Quantum Leap theme, high five. Anyways, in the last battle, Kang's shield is trampled by like millions of giant ants. This damages his gauntlets. We even see one of them sparking afterwards, and he's sleeveless in the final battle with Scott. Jerry's second question was, I didn't understand Team Ant-Man's escape plan. They were all going to just jump through the portal to leave the quantum realm, but that would have left the multiverse engine intact in the quantum realm. If Kang would have just let them go, couldn't he have just taken the engine and left afterwards? Well, first of all, I think they thought Kang was dead. He was dragged off by an army of ants. But as soon as Scott saw that he was alive, he shoves Cassie into the portal so he can fight Kang. He even tells Kang that he's not getting out.
I don't have to win. We both just have to lose.
It's a big hero moment for Scott because it's when he willingly sacrifices his time with his daughter to stop Kang the Conqueror. And yeah, Kang was really stupid by trying to hop through the portal instead of just hanging back to use the core to travel out on his own. I think this is pride that got to him. I think he was mad that Scott was able to beat him, and he wanted to make sure that he didn't get away free. It is also possible that the core, the chair, and the throne, and everything in the Citadel were so damaged that he couldn't actually use them anymore. Remember, pride is also what felled Kang to begin with. If he would have just handed Cassie over to Scott like he promised, then Scott wouldn't have joined the rebellion against him, and Kang just would have gotten away. But I think that Kang thought that Scott was so insignificant he didn't actually have to honor any deal that he made with him. Well guys, if you have any more questions or plot holes, please let me know down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.
Subscribe, like this video. Have a great day. See you guys. Bye.